Welcome back to the Clubhouse 54 podcast. I'm Michael Little, and we are back with a new format here. And we have a new co-host to the show. His name is Tyler Wax. Tyler, welcome.
What's up, Mikey?
What's up, buddy? So if for all of you that have tuned in before to the Clubhouse 54 podcast, Tyler has been a co-host on the podcast before. And we are welcoming him back to the podcast as the primary co-host moving forward with our new format here. So Tyler and I, we have known each other basically our whole lives. We're best friends. We've been friends forever. And we both share a huge passion for entrepreneurship. And with Tyler, it has started at a very early age, much earlier than myself. And we are going to share Tyler's story with everyone here today. Tyler does have involvement with golf, and Tyler has been in the golf industry to an extent in the past. But we are going to focus a little more on his story so everyone can get to know who Tyler is here today. So Tyler, part of the new format here, the guest is in charge of introducing themselves the way that they want our viewers to hear it. So I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yeah, man, I hadn't even thought this part through in terms of how you were going to intro and then where that was going to make my mind go. But it's funny. I think about like the evolution of our friendship even, and even more than that, I mean, our brotherhood. But, you look back when we were kids playing baseball and our common interest was probably baseball and getting in trouble. And then we ran into each other years and years later after we hadn't seen each other for a while. And we both had this love and passion for golf, and have been inseparable ever since. But even after golf, right, there was that kind of natural evolution in our lives into the entrepreneurial world. And, as we formed our careers and continued to shape them, that brought us to where we are here today. So pretty cool stuff, I think, from both of us here and where we've come, just as a collective unit, Mikey and Ty.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember that. I remember I was in Myrtle Beach. I was in my apartment in school. I was getting ready to graduate. And I remember you reached out to me in a text or something. I forget exactly how, and you said, hey, because we didn't necessarily lose friendship, but we just kind of disconnected a little bit through college years and things like that, which is normal. And you're like, hey, you're in the whole golf scene. What are you doing when you come back from college? And we hit it off just right back where we were from childhood through all the baseball and just hanging out, getting in trouble, like you said. And I remember you, myself, you and your father, we all went out and we played around the golf together. And that was really the moment of wow, we're going to be best friends for the rest of our lives. So that was cool.
Yep. Yeah. I'll never forget my dad looking over at me and saying, Ty, he's the real deal. He saw your swing once on the first tee box, heard that ball impact and was like, how long has he been golfing for? He's the real deal.
Yeah, at that
point, it had only been a handful of years you were playing golf even, and it was scary. So yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled to be here. Happy to share as much as people want to know about me. I mean, I don't know people may be tuning out pretty quickly, but happy to share what got me here today and the things that excite me in life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, why don't you start at a younger age where you realized that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and share with us what really influenced you to go in that direction?
Yeah. I think every kid probably has the lemonade stand and those things they're doing on the side to make money. I took some kind of unique routes to that. And we grew up at a little bit outside of North Wales. So, not quite in your town. We had sort of like a semi-farm lifestyle. I had a ton of animals growing up. Everything you could think of and name, I probably had as a pet, whether it was against my parents' will or not. But that leads me to where my entrepreneurial journey started was I had these 3 outdoor cats that, you know, just kind of became, I forget if they became our cats or we got them. I don't even remember, but they never came inside. They lived outside. They lived around our house. Those 3 cats all got pregnant at the same time. Don't know who did it still to this day. Some cat was running around there. And we ended up having, I think it was in the 20s. I want to say it was 24 or 27 cats all born within like or kittens all born within a couple week period. So I had the idea of once those cats were of age or a couple, you know, whatever it was, a couple weeks old or months old, I went door to door around the neighborhood and sold cats. So it was the summer. So I had all the time in the world, went door to door. I remember one of my dad's friends in the neighborhood had called him and he said, if your son sells my wife one more fucking cat when I'm at work, I'm going to lose it. She was my biggest customer. Shout out Lynn and, you know, Mark Stork, still a dear friend to this day to the family. But that really started it, right? I was going door to door. I was selling cats. And then from there, I ran out of cats a couple months later. I had the great idea of breeding and selling mice back into the pet stores. So what I didn't realize though, like I did when you start you know, any sort of entrepreneurial journey or career, I wouldn't call it a career or a job. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. And the big mistake I made was that when mice have children, they turn cannibalistic. So that was a pleasant surprise, an unpleasant surprise to everybody. Yeah, it was pretty horrible walking down. I'll never forget walking down into that cage and the dads were eating the mom mice and they were eating the kids, and it was horrific. So I don't know what my parents did to get rid of that. I'll have to go ask my mom. But yeah, that was another fast, swift end to one of my entrepreneurial plans. But it's always just kind of been in me to, you know, find different creative ways to forge my own path. I never liked the idea of kind of having somebody, you know, control what I was capable of or what I wasn't capable of. And I think that fire deep inside me always, you know, put me in a mindset or a position that I knew I was going to have to, you know, create my own way, one way or another at some point. So, you know,
how did you know that at such an early age?
I don't know if I even knew it then, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it was something that I kind of did. And then as I got into high school, I mean, again, it's a lot of what drives you. Like people say, like, figure out what you love and then go do that, which, yeah, I mean, I think to a degree that can work in certain instances. And we'll see a lot of it in this podcast, right, with golf and how that overlaps, you know, people's love of golf and how that overlaps with a career. But I don't think, personally, I don't think that's necessarily a realistic thing for everybody to try to go out and accomplish. You know, for me, I love freedom and independence and being able to make my own path in terms of, you know, monetarily. I have no limitation on the achievements that I can hit and how much money I can make. You know, I have no limitation on how much I can work or how little I can work. You know, so being able to control that, I think it's probably a control thing, honestly. You figure that out as you go. I definitely didn't know it as a kid. I think I probably started to sense it in high school. And I just did a lot more independently controlling things in high school. I did a lot of volunteer work. I volunteered as a powerlifting coach for the Special Olympics for years, and not the once a year volunteer. It was every Wednesday night with you know, dear longtime friend of mine, Sean Hanley, runs a program at the Y. You know, every Wednesday night we would run it for, you know, 3 hours. I did that for years and years. And then that transitioned into ABA therapy. So I was a verbal behavior therapist for autistic children for 5 years. I primarily worked with one family, really over the kind of back end of that, who I absolutely adore and love. That again was kind of, I didn't know I was doing it, but it was, I had a really, I was making money. I had a lot of flexibility. I was kind of making my own plan, where a lot of other people were, they were doing whatever jobs they could, and it was just a different path. For me, it was a different path. And then I went into caddying, right? Which is, I think where kind of my segue into the golf world happened. And I'd have to say maybe the most interesting job in the world. I'm going to make all my kids caddy. I think there's just so many lessons, unbelievable stories in that. And it is somewhat, again, it's entrepreneurial. Like, it's on you. It's on your ass to get up and be the first one in the caddy shack and build a relationship with every single, member at the club, so that they want to, like, the fact that you're controlling it. That's what always attracted me to to just, you call it entrepreneurial, but that's what attracts me, is you can control your own destiny to a degree. Sign me up. Like, yeah.
And caddy masters do a fantastic job of influencing that behavior as well. And they
Yeah.
put it on the caddy. And if you're not there, you don't show up, you don't work hard, you don't get a good report, you don't get out the next day. You're sitting in the barn all day. So
Yeah.
it really does force you to be a little more outgoing, force you to understand what that hard work is. I mean, I agree with you. All my kids are going to caddy as well for that reason. And it's actually good money too. Caddying is good money. There are people that make a career out of caddying.
Oh yeah. There's life. Oh, they're lifers. I mean, guys I caddy with in the Philly area, winter hit, they're down in Florida. And that's, they go back and forth, every year. So you can make fantastic money, all cash, under the table. You got to report it. Don't worry, I know this is recorded. No, I think, and there's so many lessons. I mean, the amount of people that you meet, and even sitting in the caddy shack, I think if you love, and that was one of the things, again, for me, I love people. I love getting to know people. I love learning about what makes people who they are, and everybody, not just successful people. And you could take anybody under the sun. And I think in caddying, at least, that was one of the really unique things. I mean, I caddied with everyone from school teachers to, there was a rocket scientist that was putting himself through his PhD, caddying, to literally homeless people. I mean, you're working alongside, shoulder to shoulder, with every walk of life, all the way to the members, or the kids of the members at the club, who, who have a career path set up for them, financially and career wise. So yeah, that to me is an experience you cannot find. I mean, I'd love to hear where else you could find a similar experience in the world, or in any career. I think caddying's it with that, walk of life.
Absolutely. And then, to follow up with that, then you have the members, where you're caddying for celebrities, you're caddying for CEOs, you're caddying for some very successful people. If they can afford to, take a caddy every Saturday, Sunday morning, or say every time they play around a golf, they need to be a successful person, and you get to meet them as well. And it really, I think, just golf in general brings all walks of life together. And that's, to me, is what makes golf so special for us.
100%.
I learned so much just by being on a golf course, just the people that I met. And what you also get to learn is, how certain industries have certain personalities as well. And that's what I learned more than anything else. And, I always say, if I was not a golf pro, I'm going into the insurance business, because insurance guys seem to play the most amount of golf, and I learned a lot about that. And I caddied myself early on in my career. And you're right. I mean, you are sitting next to some people that are homeless, and then you're sitting next to the kid that lives in a $15 million home, and their parents are making them caddy for these exact reasons that we're discussing here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a great job, and we're definitely obviously promoting that to everybody to have their child go through
Yeah.
that
Go make your
and
kids
learn it.
caddy. Get those kids caddy. So it's funny. I've never, I don't know if I've told this story before, but I thought of it when you talk about like I mean, almost every career, right? That you could think of, and and when you brought up celebrity too. So I caddied for, there's a big member guest that I caddied at Philly Cricket Club for years. And there was a big member guest, and I got put on a group with the main guest, celebrity guest. Sorry, it was a member celebrity guest. So the main celebrity guest was George Perrier, who is the owner of Lebec Fin, a famous chef in the area.
Yep.
Lebec Fin was like a world-renowned restaurant. So I caddied for him. We hit it off. My uncle is from Aix-en-Provence, so we had a little bit. I had a little bit of baseline to talk to him about, you know, as a young American kid, and we ended up hitting it off. And the end of the round, he grabbed me by the face and said, "Tyler, you have the most beautiful eyes I have ever seen. Anything you need, you call me. I will take care of you." He gave me his card,
Nice.
right? So I take his card, and I'm thinking, like, I'm not. What am I going to ask? What am I going to ask him for? Like, I don't like to. I'm not the one that likes to call people and ask for favors. So I have his card. I must have had it about a year, right? And fast forward a little time, I end up meeting this amazing, beautiful woman, most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, who's now my wife. And I was like, shit, I got that card to Lebec Fin. It was one of our, you know, I don't even know. I'd have to ask her. One of our first dates, like big dates that we went on. I pulled that card out. I called George. He remembered me the second I called him. I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking, this guy, there's no chance he's going to remember me. I'm going to give him a call. I called him. He remembered me. He set us up five course, the whole thing. He comped the entire thing, wouldn't let me pay, allowed me to tip out the wait staff and everything, but came out, you know, met Alicia, my girlfriend at the time. I don't even know if it was formally my girlfriend, but yeah, I mean, it was that's one of those things. Like, I don't know where else you could achieve something like that outside of the golf world. And what I mean by that is, you're out there and, like, you know, it's a relationship. I'm caddying for this guy. So you automatically kind of feel, you know, here's this famous rich celebrity. I'm carrying the bag. I know my place. Like, I'm going to carry the bag, and you build a relationship, and it just goes so much further than that. It's a really, you know, you get to spend 4 hours, hopefully 4 hours. Sometimes it's 5 or 6, as we know, but yeah, you get to spend 4 or 5 hours with somebody out on a course. You see who they are, and you know, you see what kind of person they are and how they carry themselves and how they treat people. I don't think there's, you know, there's not a better way in the world to learn about somebody than out on a golf course, in my opinion. And yeah,
Of course. No, absolutely. And, you know, some people may say, hey, that's lucky, you know, but you
yeah,
made the call. You know, he said call. And a lot of us, we don't ever make that phone call
yeah,
when that happens. So, you know, we don't ever share those kinds of stories because we're like, oh, there's no way. He's just being a
yeah,
nice guy. There's no way he's actually going to help me. But yeah, I mean, I have some similar stories to say with that as well, but I'm not going to bring them up because this is not about me. It's about you. So I'm going to leave those alone. But you're
yeah,
right. You do get a lot of those opportunities, and you know, sometimes it helps to hit good golf shots out there, but it goes a lot further if you're a good guy, and that's where you hear a lot of stories of caddies going on to work at some big companies and getting some really good jobs, and a lot of it is through their personality and how they treated that individual during that, you know, 5 6 hour time period with them. Awesome stuff, man. That's
Yeah.
I didn't know that story. You never shared that with me.
I know. Yeah. I don't think I've told many people that. Like, that was one that, again, I got that card. I'm thinking I'm not going to use this. Like, it's a once in a lifetime, but, and then so much time had passed. I'm thinking I'm definitely never using it now. And like you said, and we'll get into this a lot with, just being an entrepreneur and taking risk and all of those things. But I think, when you said some people call it lucky, I tell my kids this all the time. And I don't know if this is a real saying. You feel free to call me on it. Clubhouse fan base. But I've always said, luck is a combination of hard work and timing. And if you're putting yourself in the right position and you're working hard and you're putting yourself out there, luck is going to come your way. So it's just a matter of putting in the hard work and allowing that time to happen. That's what's going to define lucky. So you call it lucky, but you know what? I was the one getting my ass out there caddying. I was the one, making sure I was building relationships. So, yeah, I was lucky to be put in his group, but at the same time, I put myself in that position, through being the first one in there and earning my spots out there on the course. And it's no different anywhere else. It's no different in any other business or area that you're trying to define success.
Yeah. No, I say it all the time in golf, and as people are like, "Oh man, nice job with whatever tournament," and I'm like, I just got lucky, because I made sure I was up, I made sure I was working hard, I made sure I was talking to the right people. You make sure you're in the right opportunity to get lucky, like you're saying, and that's so I do think I think kind of every day that we live through luck, but we decide what that luck is just based on that hard work and dedication, and it's with being I know for me with when I switched to more of a full-time entrepreneurial role in my life back in 2021, and it was a daunting task,
Yeah.
and it was scary, and I'm like, man, there's so much work ahead of me here. This is not going to come easy at all. And for you, like, it was more of a natural thing for you, but for me it's not natural at all, and I have to probably work, for me internally I feel like I'm working harder than you are, but I know I'm not. It's just more of a natural thing that you're feeling. And no, I mean, I say it every day. I look up every day and I say, man, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to
Yeah.
be able to do these things that I'm doing, but I also know that at the end of the day when I lay in my bed, I'm out right away because I'm exhausted as you get, So there's a lot to what you said there.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's
there's those components of, like, you think about, and I said it early in the podcast is, I think there's a small fraction of people out there that have the opportunity to really do what they love. And what that means can vary. And what I mean is, like, there was nothing ever career wise for me that I thought, hey, I love this. I'm going to make a career out of it. But for me, I found those other things. And as I mentioned earlier, right, it was flexibility. It was, for me to be able to coach all my kids' sports teams. That's the stuff that I love. That's what drives me, the ability to make as much money as I possibly can. But as we're kind of talking through this and I think about the foundation of that, and I said it earlier, unrelated to that comment, I love people. Like, I love getting to know people. I love learning about people. And that I think is why it came so naturally to me to just be able to kind of transition. But to your point earlier, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I'm still challenged with a lot of the other things in terms of the, like, day-to-day business stuff. No, I don't think anybody, loves doing that. I love dealing with people, which is what I kind of surround myself with. The other stuff, yeah, it's a grind. I mean, like I said, you're not going to find anything that's just you love 100% through and through. Even these tour players, man, like, you could think they have the best job in the world. Most people don't realize it is a grind. You're talking about, I mean, it's a hard life, and people just see it for what it is when they see it. But, Yeah. I mean, I
Just
think find those things
watch,
you love and latch onto them.
yeah, watch Full Swing, and you'll get a lot of
Yeah.
that
That'll
story
give you, yeah,
just through that.
exactly. It's a good point.
And people talk about work-life balance a lot, and I don't think work-life balance exists, to be completely honest with you. I had a job where I worked 100 hours a week on property at a golf course. Now I have my own business and I'm working just as much. I'm not slowing down. The difference is, like, you just made a comment about the children and being able to coach their teams and things like that. I can now make my own schedule to where I can
Yeah.
take my kids to school, pick them up, help coach out with my daughter's softball team, keep it's more of I'm able to have more influence in my kids' lives right now than what I was before, because I wasn't around at all. Now it's like, yeah, I may still be working at 10, 11 o'clock at night on my computer, but I made sure I took that time to sit down and, have dinner with the kids, or if they needed to do homework, or whatever that is, that activity is that night. And my son's 4 years old, and he said to me the other day, he said, Daddy, I like that you teach me things. I want you to teach me more things. you know and if I'm working for a company and I don't have control over my schedule, I know that comment would never happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You got
the
to
work
break the
life
news.
balance.
You got to break the news to little Mike that you run out of things to teach him.
Well, yeah, let's not go there with him. uh
not
But
until
let's
not
let's keep
until he's
moving
8
along a
years.
little bit with this.
Yeah.
And I think the audience should know more about what CopperHill Consulting is, and just briefly touch on how you got there, unless you feel like there's a major influence that got you there, then touch on that. But let's hear a little bit more about CopperHill Consulting.
Yeah. Man, is there a major influence that got me there? We could talk about that. I don't think any kind of one thing outside of my dad and family and support that got me there. Those are the major things. My wife supporting me through it, and yeah, I think I'll step back and just kind of explain. So I after college, I went into the tech sales world, or software sales world at that time, which was kind of a new thing, cloud-based. What is cloud-based technology? What is the cloud? So I got into that space and really fell in love with it. And ultimately, this is my third job in the corporate world. So I had two jobs, and then I started the company. My first, I started in just a grinded out sales role, business development, making 150, 200 phone calls a day, smile and dial. Got a couple of promotions, moved up into, account executive role, got an offer to be a regional director. So, built my way up in that company, and then moved over into the consulting sales role. And the company that I had switched to, they primarily focused on, Salesforce.com and implementing their technology across other organizations. I had a lot of different visions in what I thought could make us more successful. And ultimately, although we were able to grow that company to a lot of success, I mean, we grew them significantly, with myself and two others that I would ultimately end up partnering with and starting CopperHill. But it got to a point of frustration where we had grown it so much, the CEO wanted more involvement. And, I just realized, man, I'm not able to make my own decisions. And it wasn't even in personal life, because anybody knows in sales, if you're selling, you can kind of do what you want. You can make your own schedule. People shouldn't be asking you too many questions. Why I fell in love with sales, because you define your success. And then from there, you're kind of running your own business in a sense anyway. So, but for me, it was more about, man, I just see so much more opportunity for success and for how we can help our customers. So, made the decision to start CopperHill. I went to one of my bosses at the time, and a peer, and said, hey, I really want to leave. I'd love to start my own company, I'm kind of smart and I'm giving myself a lot of credit. But the one thing I'm really smart at is knowing that I need help in certain areas. So that what I would say is my strength, which I think is a good strength for anybody to have. Know your limits, accept it, and get support in those areas. So I approached two of the smartest people that I'd worked with, and we ended up I convinced them. I had to convince their wives, really, but I convinced them to, come with this young kid, and they were a little bit more seasoned at the time, so they had a lot more experience and brought a lot of things to the table that I knew would be vital in building a successful business. So, once we kind of made that decision to make the plunge, it was 8 years ago in September. I let my wife know what we were going to do. We kind of came up with a plan. We were pregnant with our second kid, and decided to wait until September 3rd, which was a Monday, for me to go in and quit, because we wanted to make sure we had health insurance for that month. And why I'm saying these details will tie into, I think you guys get, like, there's a lot of shit that comes with being the owner of your own business and starting something. But yes, I went in, resigned. A lot of pushback happened, some wild stuff. But I think ultimately, as I got home, kind of started to set in on me, like, wow, okay, I don't have a job now. I got my own company. And then, like, 2 hours later, Leash went into labor, and we had our second boy. So I took about, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days off after we had the kid, after we had Emmett, our second, and then got back to work, and started building the company out. And it was a hell of a grind, man. Those first handful of years. I can get more into that. I'm sure you have questions on it, but yeah, so that was kind of the journey in starting it and getting there, and it's evolved so much since then. One of the partners that we started the company with retired, so we bought him out. We brought it. We acquired another company and made the owner of that company partner, which is huge in what we do. So now what our focus is, obviously, is, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of what I was doing with Salesforce implementation. So our focus now is strictly in the healthcare life sciences space around interoperability and technology. So we work with companies to implement Salesforce, to implement AWS, to work with their backend EHR, EMR, so their patient record systems. And then we tie all of that data and information together, and create an interoperable solution for them. So that way it improves patient care, and it improves, all of the patient journeys and things that I think a lot of us experience every day. If you've ever been to a doctor, you've ever had a loved one go through a healthcare system, what's really cool about my journey, for me at least, is that it has really kind of tied back into the compassionate aspect of, my background and my love for people and my compassion for people. And we won't get too much in the history, but, I grew up with a different mindset and kind of a different lifestyle. I lost a brother to cancer when I was 12 years old, and he was 7. My dad was diagnosed with cancer a few years later. So I had a different perspective on life and what it meant to be a kid when I was young. So it really, for me, it wasn't important to go out and do different things. For me, what was important was to go home and spend time with my family, to go home and see my brothers and my sister. And those sort of things kind of shaped who I am today and why I try to define the path that I define. And it's really unbelievable to me, because I wish I could say it was like this grand plan of, I'm going to get into the healthcare world, but all of these different journeys have kind of tied me back in. I talked about my work in the Special Olympics. I talked about, my work as a therapist for autistic children. And, ultimately I was kind of working in the healthcare field in a way my whole life and didn't even realize it. And now to be tied back into working with people, working with technology, and having healthcare be the healthcare technology be the focus of that, in why our business is successful and how we help other people be successful to ultimately help patients is, beyond a blessing. That's lucky. I feel like that's lucky. I mean, we talk about lucky earlier. That's kind of, again, yeah, it's hard work and timing, but that was one of those things. It kind of, when we started the company and all the different things that happened, and this big push for healthcare to start to adopt technology more and have this need for interoperability, and then the pandemic hitting and really having a realization that we need to be able to do things not on site all the time. That, those were all catalysts for why we were able to be successful, why, as a company. So, yeah.
So what was your biggest challenge that you faced in that time?
Like starting the company?
Yeah, like was it how much say was COVID a challenge for you guys, or did COVID help accelerate you?
Well, I mean, that was scary as shit for a while. I mean, I think nobody was doing business for 3-4 months. We ended up having a fantastic year, through the back half of it. But yeah, I mean, that was terrifying. I think everybody was scared at that time with what was going to happen to their business and all the work they'd put in. I would say the most challenging was starting it, and not for any of the reasons that I thought, honestly. I mean, we started the company. We got sued by our former employer very quickly, and not for any reason. That lawsuit settled, but it was kind of a frivolous, essentially try to bleed us out before we even did anything. We had no customers, we had no business. Like, we were just starting the company, and it was more a play, I think, to just get us to spend a bunch of money before we got started. So, that was a scary time. My wife was home with the kids, almost full time, or at that point, she may have been home with the kids full time. She's working 1 day a week. So we really had no income, literally had no income. I lived off of savings for a year and a half while we built the company up. I'm talking not a penny in the door. So it's that kind of shit. Like, you're not thinking about that when you're starting a company, and you could ask any entrepreneur. You're not, if you knew half of the hurdles and roadblocks that you were going to hit, you probably wouldn't have done it. But that's part of the beauty. And like, when people talk about, when I hear people talk about, well, like, I'm going to do this, but it's not the right timing. I'm about to have a kid, or I'm going to get engaged, or I'm going, doesn't matter. None of that matters.
No.
Just do it now. Start it now. Cause
Yep.
I can tell you firsthand, it's irrelevant. My wife was pregnant with our second. It was the worst time that we could have picked to start a company. We were about, like, there's no good timing. If I waited 3 years, it would have been completely different. If anything, I wish we'd done it sooner. So there's all those little things, but I think, that first year and a half, 2 years, it was difficult. And I think, if you know that going in, I don't know many people that would still have the cojones to do it.
Well, it's like any entrepreneur would agree with this. Like, and I have a brick and mortar, so for me, it's you're sitting there and you're just like, wait, where are the customers? They're supposed to be here, and you have to wait for them to come, and then you realize real quick, well, I need to be an expert in advertising. Well, I have to go door to door. I have to start putting myself out there more, and I wasn't prepared for this. I thought
Yeah.
if I just opened the doors, people would come,
Yeah.
and there's you'll get some that just walk through the door and stumble upon you and things like that, but I mean, it's a whole world that you're getting yourself into. I mean, and that's where I think the team aspect of this really comes in, like you said before. You have to know your limitations, you have to know your strengths, have to know your weakness, and if you know you have some of those things, you need people there to be able to support you through it. And I know for me personally, I have a few businesses, and you know my role with all them is like you said, I'm the people guy. I go out, I talk to the people, and I gather the people to get them in the door, and then from there, everyone else handles the rest.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that. I'm not good at all those other things. So if I think no matter what the business is, if it's golf, if it's in the medical field, if it's selling ice cream, I don't think it matters really what it is. All these things, stand true with all those businesses.
Yeah, spot on. It none of it matters. The persistence matters. The grind matters. I think those things are going to ultimately be defining in your success, which is, again, to me, that's the beauty in it. You control it. Like that's, yes, there's things that happen that are out of your control for sure. I mean, let the pandemic in 2020 obviously be a part of that. Like that hurt a lot of companies. And that was a difficult thing for everybody to go through. So I think, again, you figure out a way to get through it, and push through it. And ultimately it's, would you be happier if you tried and failed, or if you never tried? That's, I try to tell my kids that all the time. Is like, failing is good. You have to fail. You want to fail. That's, it's, you just don't do it too much and learn from it. If you learn from it, you'll be okay. That's
exactly. That's the biggest thing, and whenever I do something or start a new venture, I'm like, you know what? I just have to look at this as I'm never going to see this money again, because if I think of it that way, then I'm not going to obsess over it as much as, I normally would, and I just say, hey, if this fails, then you better learn something. You just paid for education.
Yeah.
And look, we can talk theory all day long in a classroom. You and I can sit here and talk theory, and maybe people are going to learn a few things from this, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately going to be that experience that they have, that's going to help, get them through that and understand all this. I relate it to hitting the final shot on a hole to win a golf tournament, or having to make a putt to win a golf tournament. I mean, you're going to miss that putt. Maybe some people make it the first time, but they're going to miss it the second time or the third time, and I may miss it 3 or 4 times, but then I'm going to make it 5, 6, 7, 8, and it really is this, it's the same thing. And it's so relatable. What advice would you give somebody that is looking to become an entrepreneur? He's thinking.
I mean, we kind of we're alluding to it earlier, right? It's just, I'll quote Nike, just do it. I mean, what are you waiting for? You're not gonna have everything figured out. The timing is not ever going to be perfect. I think it's just a matter of pushing through and doing it and believing in yourself and not taking no for an answer in defining your success.
Yeah. I think you said a good word there. Perfect. You don't try to make it perfect.
No.
Because then you're gonna fail. That's to me, that's huge. That's huge. That's a huge part of it for sure.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for failure doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
have a plan. Not saying don't have a plan, but
have a plan.
don't try to make it perfect. Let your customer tell you what you are a lot of the times.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what is perfection even? That's a construct that you're building in your own mind. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. Everybody's going to have a different perspective. Everybody's going to have a suggestion on what you should and shouldn't be doing, and what you could be doing different. And some of those suggestions are fantastic, and a lot of them are not. So you gotta really just, trust your gut. Don't be afraid to fail. And absolutely do not be afraid to listen and ask questions. I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's, again, you talk about the things that are important to me. I know now are things that I tell my kids every single day. When I tell my boys something over and over, I start to realize, oh, okay. Yeah. And it's because I failed. It's because I failed in those areas and learned from it. And one of the things I tell them all the time, ask questions. Your failure is going to be determined on the amount of questions that you ask. Because if you ask all the questions that you need to ask, there's no reason that you shouldn't be successful or fail or, fall on your face or any of that. I mean, again, that stuff is going to happen, but if you're asking questions, that means you're putting yourself in a position to learn. You're putting yourself in a position to get better. And ultimately that's all you can ask. And when you see that out of somebody, it's a different level like that. I think in answering your question too, advice for an entrepreneur or somebody looking to start a company or whatever. I'm not sure how I feel about the word entrepreneur because it's so overused nowadays and in what makes somebody an entrepreneur. But I'll say when you're able to put yourself in a position to be vulnerable, you're able to put yourself in a position to be successful. And I think anybody who's started a business, taken a big risk, what happens when you do that is you're way more willing to make yourself more vulnerable, to have a conversation with somebody that you wouldn't have had, to approach somebody that you wouldn't have approached normally. And those are the things typically that help you define the outcome of success that you were going for down the road. And, it took me a while to realize that, but I think as I thought back on my career and the different things that I did and the different risks that I took, all of those were the foundational base of them was vulnerability. I had nothing to lose. I didn't have, when I started the company, I wasn't making any money. There was nothing to lose for me. So it was all upside. So if I went and talked to somebody and they said no, or they thought, I was crazy or going down the wrong path, okay. I mean, I'm not in any worse position I am today, so I think that if you can harness that vulnerability in anything that you do, you can be successful in anything you do. And it doesn't mean you have to start your own company. It doesn't mean you have to take a risk. It could be in your day-to-day job. If you're not scared to take those risks and push the boundaries, you will be twice as successful as you are today.
Yep. I couldn't agree with that anymore. That's awesome. Tyler, this has been a great conversation. You and I could sit here and talk all day long.
I mean, I love talking to you.
But part of our new format is we have a time limit with the podcast as well.
Short. I was going to say right when I finished that, I was like, that's it. Let's end it. I wasn't even planning on saying that. Let's just end it there.
Exactly. So I think this will give the viewers a good idea on what we're going to be doing moving forward. Obviously, a lot of our guests are going to be more on the golf focused side of things, obviously. And we have a few that are lined up that I'm like super stoked for. I'm very excited for some of the guests that we have coming on. It's going to be really cool to get your perspective of some things with this as well. With you being the ultimate businessman here, and having a lot more experience in the world of, as you say, you don't like the word entrepreneurship, but in entrepreneurship. And I'm really looking forward to your input with a lot of our guests. And, for the most part, all of our guests that we have lined up either were golf professionals that are no longer golf pros, but are still in the golf business doing something different. Work for, say, the USGA or played professional golf. And then people that are in an industry that use golf for their career and they're going to share a lot of stories on how that can benefit our viewers as well. So I'm super excited for the future of this. I'm really excited that you're here doing this with me, Tyler. So
me too. And I'll say, I just want to say, I probably glossed over a lot of the golf stuff in my life. I will say one thing, and if we want to leave it at the end, fine. If we want to edit it, chop it into the middle. This is pretty cool though, and I just realized this though. One of the things that shaped my career and the path that I went on that I never really kind of realized was when I was finishing college, when I graduated, I had a couple of really good connections that I had made through golf and through some other friendships that were connected there. They were introducing me into the pharma world, and I knew I wanted to get into sales, right? So I was going into pharma sales. And I was on my second or third interview. So I had a really good shot at getting an offer from a very large pharma company to do entry-level pharma sales. As that was happening, they had passed a law in the pharmaceutical industry that reps were no longer able to entertain doctors. So you were able to go into the doctor's offices and visit and pitch them your products, but you could no longer entertain them. You couldn't take them out to dinner. You couldn't take them out golfing, any of that. When that passed, I cut my interviews off right away. That's how big of an impact that relationships and golf particularly. I said, wait a minute. So I can't golf I can't go out and take a doctor golfing. Nope. I shut my interviews off and went another direction. So,
well, you're right.
In a way, golf really, because that was I wanted freedom, I wanted flexibility, I wanted unlimited cap, and I wanted to be able to take people golfing. That's what I was looking for out of college in a career. So it, in a really wild way, it had a pretty heavy impact on where my career path went. So tie that in how you want, but I figured
we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave that right there. That's a little bonus coverage. How's that?
Thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to the pod, and I'm really looking forward to all these guests and learning about them and what makes them successful and what makes them happy in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, thank you. To everyone listening, thank you. We'll see you next time.
See you.